Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not? Okay, so when you think about rider fitness, you probably assume that it's just something to do for riders who want to compete. Well, actually, that's not the case at all. And that is why I recorded this episode today. And I wanted to go into how it can actually help any riders if you are not a competitive rider, if you're just a happy hacker. This is what this episode's all about, so I want you to listen to it. I also link in my recording of my webinar, so that is there for you as well. So I hope you enjoy it and let me know how you find this. Hello guys, welcome back to Why Not. So today I want to do like once every month kind of horse riding related episode. So this month's one is this one. So if you are not a horse rider, sorry, but you can have a listen anyway. But if you are a horse rider, even better. This will help. So I wanted to talk, because I'm always talking about like horse riding fitness and stuff like that, or even like equestrian fitness, equestrian strength training. And I was kind of talking to someone recently, and he kind of mentioned that's really more for people who are competing, aren't they? And I was like, well, no, actually, that's the thing. It's relevant for everyone. So even if you are a leisure rider, it's not all about just if you're competing, you need to improve on these things. A lot of these things can actually help you, as I said, if you're just a leisure rider or a happy hacker or anything like that, like someone who doesn't actively compete. So that's what I want to do my episode about today. I wanted to talk about how that can be really, really helpful for you if you are just a happy hacker or a leisure rider, and the differences it can make. So let's start on this. And first off, why would you bother doing this if you are not looking to compete? So there's a multitude of reasons why you would do strength training in general. So I think a lot of people think that fitness means, losing weight, improving fitness for certain things, but being active and doing certain stuff will actually help you in your general life as well. So it's more than just, to improve in your sport. So it can actually, like, if you are stronger, it can mean things like, carrying your shopping bags are easier, or say carrying things around the yard or mucking out stables. And that's one thing that even if we aren't competing, you have to do. Like, you might have to bring feed up, or you might have to bring bales of hay, or, everyone has to skip out a stable at some point. So these kind of things, if you are a little bit stronger, it's going to make these things easier. And we kind of never think about that because we're just used to them being difficult. But if your muscles are a little bit stronger, it just makes it that much easier. And it's kind of thing you don't notice straight away. Like, it could be a month in, you're like, oh my god, this wheelbarrow feels lighter, or I'm not out of breath after wheeling the wheelbarrow up the hill to the the muck heap. That's what it is. So that's one thing. So it's a little small thing. And as I said, other things like, climbing the stairs, getting your shopping, all that kind of things. These are all other things that obviously can be improved by being a little bit stronger. And then one of the things about even saying, I know I said it's not about weight loss, but sometimes a unintended benefit of strength training, or sometimes it is the intended benefit, or fitness training, is that you lose weight or you lose body fat more than anything. You may not lose weight. Sometimes you can lose body fat without actually losing weight. And the reason this can be helpful when it comes to horse riding is obviously for the horse, it's going to be lighter on you. It's going to be easy for you when you're riding as well, if you're a little bit less body fat, for want of a better description. Not lighter, but also, horses spook. It doesn't matter what scenario you're in, they can spook. And when they spook, if you have a bit more body fat on you or a bit more weight, it is a lot easier for you to become unbalanced and unseated and end up on the ground front, This is because it throws your centre of gravity off and it moves quicker. So it will, with the force of the spook or whatever, it's going to throw your mass in a different direction harder. Whereas if you are a little bit less, it's going to be easier to control that spook and not come off. Also, if your muscles are stronger, it's going to be easier to hold it, hold on to the horse. If they're bucking or turning quickly, it's easier if you've got stronger muscles to grip on or to sit back into a position that will stop you coming off or sit to the side. So that's kind of one of the reasons sometimes doing some fitness can actually help in general. If you've got a spooky horse, or the time of year if it's windy and it's dark and different things can scare your horse, it can be the difference sometimes in you staying on the horse or staying off the horse. And as I said, it's not just necessarily to your weight or your body fat mass. There's plenty of riders who'll be well able to do it. But again, if you are that little bit lighter, it won't throw your centre of gravity as quickly. Or if you are stronger, so if your muscles are stronger in your legs, in your core, in your arms, you'll be able to sit these things better. So, if they start bucking, you can sit back and be comfortable in sitting in it, as opposed to you've been thrown forward. It's one to think about, because I think it's something that we forget about. Even these little things, little tiny things that can make huge differences to your experience riding, or experiences on whether or not you come off and things like that. It's always worth remembering, and working on these things that we know we're slightly weaker at can be the difference in you staying on or off when your horse decides, I don't like that, I'm off. And obviously it's going to make your riding stronger. Now, just because you are not looking to go into competitions doesn't mean you don't want to improve your riding or do the best riding you can. So even if it's a case of you're hacking, again, like if they spook and they try to run off, you're more likely to be able to stop them. Now, I know if a horse wants to go, it's going to go. You're on your own. But if it feels more secure with you on them, they might be less likely to spook because you're more solid and it's less daunting if something happens. You can calm them quicker. You're less likely to collapse forward if you feel stronger, and then that can save you as well. So I suppose even if we are not competing, if it's something we want to do for fun, the better experience you can make it for both you and your horse. Like, it works for everyone, it's great for everyone involved. So I think it's always worth thinking about as well. Like, as I said, the stronger you are, the stronger your riding is. Doesn't necessarily have to mean so you get a better dressage score or you go clear in, of course, fences. It could be your horse fuses less when you decide to do a few jumps, or your horse doesn't feel as jumpy when you're out hacking because they know you're in control and you're calm and collected. So here's another thing as well that I think some people don't think about when it comes to fitness, and I have spoken about this before when it comes to my strength training. And the reason strength training or resistance training is very, very important is, especially if you're aging. So I think it's after the age about 35 or so, everybody start to develop sarcopenia, which is the breakdown of muscle over time, and it just doesn't regenerate as much. And because of this can over time lead you more susceptible to injury. So if you are doing resistance training, this can also help counteract the negative effects of sarcopenia and make you stronger and keep your muscles as as efficient as possible. Now, the thing about having muscles, again, people would think it's all about looking ripped and shredded and stuff like that, but it's not. The reason we want to kind of keep muscle as we age as well is it makes your quality of life much better. So the more active you are and the more mobile you are, the more active you are, the more mobile you'll be. You're less likely to end up unable to look after yourself. And it's little things like keeping a bit of resistance training up, a few squats here or there, that kind of thing that can really make a difference over time. And it's more than just having muscle. As I said, the thing about muscle is when you've got muscle around your joints, having muscle helps strengthen your tendons, which protects your joints. If you have muscle around your joints, again, it can also protect it. So that's going to protect it from impacts or any form of injury. So these kind of things are really helpful in the prevention of injury, because even if you are a leisure rider or a happy hacker or the like, it's going to be a hazard because you are working with horses. We can't always guarantee what they're going to do, which is so much fun. But it's something to remember that just because you aren't competing doesn't mean they don't have these benefits, especially as you are getting older. And another thing that strength training helps with is strength training, resistance training helps with is the likes of our women are mostly prone to this after menopause, but it's osteoporosis. So osteoporosis or osteopenia is like brittle bone syndrome. So if you fall, you're more likely to break a bone. Now, one of the things you can do as well, as I said, is resistance training. This has a really good way of helping you increase your bone density, which again, then coupled with, your more muscle, is going to help you feel less likely to, not feel, but like you will be less likely to injure yourself if you were to fall. And even knowing that you're less likely, or you don't have, like say, osteopenia or all this stuff, even knowing that can make you more confident when you're riding, because it's always about confidence as well. No matter what level we are at riding, your horse can feel when you're nervous, you're tense, they get tense, and things are more likely to happen. You're more likely to do different things if you feel more confident. Try different things, try new things. So it's worth that alone. If you know kind of, all right, well, I'm a little bit stronger, I don't have to worry about less. We have to worry less about getting injured if something were to happen. You can do more with your riding. So maybe part of the reason you are a leisure rider is because you're afraid something's going to happen. Maybe you do want to go back competing. Or maybe you just do the same things over and over. You're afraid to go and try anything new again because you're afraid something will happen. Whereas if we have this, foundation, we know our body's strong, and we know we're going to be safe riding. We know our horse trusts us as well, and things will be a lot easier. So even if that instant comes where this horse does spook or sees something or decides to test you, you know that you're going to be okay and you're going to stay in control. So it's really, really important in that sense as well. As I said, more control, more confidence. Another thing is, I think everyone, it doesn't matter what type of rider you are, what level you are, what you do, who you are, everyone has some niggly ache and pain injury that they have had for God knows how long. Could it be from falling? Could it be from working the way you work? Could it be from anything? Like literally anything. The list is endless. You might know what you did, you may not know what you did, but you may have been resting it and trying to wait for it to go away, and it just will never leave. A lot of the time that's because we need to strengthen that area. Because the injury, you've injured yourself, a lot of the time what happens is our body kind of protects that area, and the pain is when it's healing and stuff like that. So because of that, it's now weakened, so it's not as strong as it was. And if you just leave it alone, it's going to stay that way, and it's always going to be a little bit niggly and a little bit weaker. Whereas if you actively do something about it to build it back up and bring it back to where it was, you won't have that niggly pain. Now, a lot of the time you kind of have to keep on top of these things. If it's happened once, it might happen again. If it's happened on one side, it might happen on the other side. So you have to kind of keep an eye on it and kind of maintain them all the time. But it's really worth it to know that if you go do something, you're not going to constantly have a bit of shoulder pain, or that little grindy hip, or something else is going to go, you can't lift too long, or your back gets sore. All these things, if we can make those areas a little bit stronger, or we can counteract this pain or this niggle that you've kind of become used to, and you're just like, oh, I'll just deal with that. That's always going to be there. Not a lot of the time. Now, there are some caveats to that, like if you have, say for instance, any like nerve issues, or if you have a spinal injury, or if you have a chronic pain issue, like they probably will always be there. You can still manage them in certain ways, but in general, if it's just an old kind of injury that's kind of hung around, if you do something about it, a lot of the time it will be near good as new, or just able to function a lot better than it was. and you don't actually have to live with it and let it get worse, because the longer you leave it, the worse it'll get, and you have a chance of it going again because it's never been built back up. There's all these other different things that can happen, and it's just so worth spending like 10-20 minutes a day doing a bit of rehab on it. Not even 20, I think it's normally about 10 minutes, doing a bit of rehab for a couple of weeks and building it back up. So even if you just have a new injury and you've gone to the physio and they've told you to do something, do what they say, because if you don't, it's never going to be better. Another thing I was saying, like, this, not necessarily actual injuries, but you could have some aches and pains, some back pain or knee pain or something like that, and this is stemming from a weak joint or a weak muscle, or even the likes of arthritis. Now, obviously there's different stages of arthritis, but if you're in the early stages, building muscle around the area can be very helpful to support it and help you keep going until you may later down the road need a hip or knee replacement or whatever. But just because you have arthritis doesn't mean you should stop exercising. It can be really, really helpful, as I said, to build muscle around the area to support it, because it doesn't have that joint fluid anymore. And like that, if you don't even have arthritis, if you have just like a bad knee or a gammy hip or something, a lot of the time the reason is it's either been overworked on one side, or there is a weak muscle somewhere, and it's not always the weak muscle that's sore. Sometimes, say for instance, a lot of times, often with our back, it's the stronger muscle that becomes sore because it's kind of overworked and it needs some support from other muscles, and that's why it gets sore and it gets tired. If you strengthen up these other muscles, you can now take the pressure off that muscle, or that, like, say for instance, the side of your knee sore could be because there's a muscle around your knee that's overworking. If you start working on the other side, build that up, or if you do a little bit of other work in your quads, that could actually take all the pressure off that knee, and suddenly that knee pain that you kind of like just thought was part of life, you used it to tell the weather, that kind of thing is no longer there. So it's another thing to remember, like, these are all extra benefits of doing some form of strength training or fitness training that people don't actually think about, or they always see, the sweaty workouts where they're dying on the floor and not able to walk for days. They don't see the people who are doing, their basic exercise, working through them, like, even like these workouts that you can do can be done at home. You can do this kind of stuff with body weight exercise. You can do this kind of stuff with light weights. You can do this kind of stuff with bands. You don't need all this fancy equipment. You don't need a massive gym with 10 different machines for one exercise. You just need yourself. You just need to be ready to try things a little bit different. So an open mind really, really helps in this situation, and just like coming at it at different things. So like, if you can't do a certain exercise because you're on a machine, how can we work out how we can do it? Can we use bands? Can we use, you don't even need actual weights. That's the thing. Like, people underestimate the fact, like, a school bag with books, that can be used. You can use people got very creative during the COVID lockdowns. I had someone using get their friends to throw rocks around the place. I know someone who was using a bag of fertilizer in a workout before. There's all these things. You can use bottles, you can use cans, you can use all these, like wine bottles even, I know that's bottles again, but all these, the whole idea is we're creating some resistance against the muscles to help them become stronger and build up a little bit. So this is why it doesn't necessarily have to include massive weights. It has to include tension on the area that you're trying to work. So a lot of that can be achieved with body weight too. Some of the hardest exercises are body weight, and people forget about that. Pull-ups, press-ups, two of the most difficult exercises there, and all you're doing is working on your own body weight. So these are kind of things that I think us leisure, or us, I suppose I'm a leisure rider, haven't competed in ages, can also do in order to improve our riding, improve our time with the horses, improve injuries, improve our mobility. Like, even doing bits of yoga and Pilates can help your mobility, which again can help your riding because you can engage more muscles. there's so many facets on how doing some form of strength training or some form of resistance training can help you with your riding, no matter what level you are and what level you want to be or where you want to be in your riding. And I think it's something that we need to consider for all levels. And even just as I said, it's not necessarily going to be for your riding. It's going to help you in normal life and outside life, doing things that you enjoy, doing things you have to do, all the normal stuff that we always do, that you can actually make easier by doing a bit of strength training. So I hope you found that informative and helpful. It's a little bit shorter today. I do have I'll link it in the show notes. There is a full podcast, which is the audio recording of the webinar I did on why strength training can improve your riding. I think it's great for everyone to listen to. It goes into more depth about the different things it can help you with. So I'll link that in the show notes. And also, if you do want to follow me, you will find me on Instagram and TikTok. It is at Strong in the Saddle. I also have a general fitness page on Instagram that is Chrissy Hawkins Fitness, and Chrissy H Fitness. And if you want to go check out my website, it is www.chrissyhawkins.com. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this interesting and learned a little bit from it, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day or night or wherever you listen to this. I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast, so if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok, and thanks again for listening.